What's going on, pro wrestling world? Welcome to the Kicking Out podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Tanner Lee, along with another host, Paul Zartman. We're both huge, passionate wrestling fans, but especially when it comes to all elite wrestling. Paul, we've talked about doing this for probably half a year or so, and now we're finally getting around to do it.
Yeah, we first started talking about this right before COVID hit, and then it was like, everything with COVID, we can't do it right now, and finally it just seemed like the right time to do it.
Yep. It's the start of the new year, 2021. We still don't have live fans at the shows yet. I wanted to do it before the fans come back because I think it'd be a really fun podcast once we're in the groove and the fans do come back. But we're both big, passionate wrestling fans, which leads me to I got a series of questions here to let our listeners and viewers get to know us a little better. Paul, how long have you been watching pro wrestling?
Oh, I've been watching pro wrestling since '93.
Oh, wow.
Give or take. So yeah, started out just watching little things, and then watched as Monday Night Raw really became a staple in everybody's home on Monday nights. Watched the WCW Monday Night Wars. So been a long time.
Yeah, I can't say I've watched it as long because when in 1993 I was 1 year old. But I actually stopped watching wrestling two different periods of my life. I started, it was probably, I don't know if it was 97 or 98. I was like in first grade. I mean, when wrestling was as hot as it's ever been. You had the NWO and the WCW. You had, Austin, The Rock, everybody doing their thing over in the WWF, the Attitude Era. So I watched it for a while, and then it got to about, I don't know if it was late 99 or early 2000. And my parents knew I watched wrestling, but they decided to tune in one night and then we'll see what's going on. And it was a segment with some divas, and there was some really edgy, raunchy stuff going on. And they pretty much decided from there I shouldn't be watching it. I wasn't old enough, which looking back, I understand why they made that decision, but it bummed me out. So I actually took a break from about 2000 to I'd say about 2003. I don't know, I was just flipping through the channels one night and I saw that Goldberg was making his debut in the WWE. So it was right after WrestleMania 19 when he speared The Rock, and I started watching. And by that time, my parents didn't really care. I mean, it wasn't as edgy as it was in the late 90s and about 2000-ish. So I started watching it, and that was the year of Kane unmasking, the road to WrestleMania 20, the return of the dead man, all that good stuff. So then I watched it from about there through probably up to WrestleMania 23. And then for whatever reason, when I got into high school, I kind of stopped watching for a while and didn't really watch it through high school. And then I got to college. Once again, it was in 2011. It was my freshman year in college. I'm flipping through the channels, and I see The Rock return to the WWE. And I'm like, The Rock was my favorite wrestler growing up. Now that he's back for the first time since WrestleMania 20, I'm like, I'm going to, see what this is about. And then he started feuding with Cena, and I was hooked all over again, and I haven't stopped since. So that's kind of my background of my wrestling viewership.
So did you catch it when The Rock came out and sang to Vicky Guerrero then?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's good, because that was one of my favorite Rock segments of all time. So.
Oh, it's fantastic. I watched pretty much right when The Rock was announced as the special guest host of WrestleMania 27. I started watching Raw every week up until, WrestleMania. And then they had he cost Cena the title against The Miz in the main event. And then, of course, feuded with Cena throughout the next year leading up to the once-in-a-lifetime match it was billed. But we know that was a lie, looking back on it. So, So I'm glad I caught it on the right night I did back in 2011 because it's brought a lot of joy and entertainment back to my life the last decade.
Yeah, the last decade's kind of been dodgy when we talk about WWE, just because they want to listen to the fans, but it's like they're trying to get away from that edginess that they had in the 90s, that the fans are going, well, you were the best in the 90s. And it's like, well, look at all this stuff we have.
Correct. And hold on to that thought. That one of my questions in a little bit kind of
Oh,
leads
yeah.
into that. So, all right, next question. This is a tough one. What is your favorite match of all time?
Ooh, my favorite match of all time um, would probably be Flair's retirement match with HBK.
Okay. Interesting choice.
I'm a big Flair fan. My papa actually met Ric Flair, and he passed away when I was really young. So being able to watch Ric Flair, it was kind of still that little connection there between us. So seeing that match, it brought the tears to your eyes, but at the same time, you knew it was time for Flair to retire.
Sure. I just wish he wouldn't have had his run in TNA like he did, but
Yeah, I wish when he retired, he'd stay retired.
he
But
needed the
he's one of
money.
those that says, yeah, he's one of them that says, oh, I'm retired, but I'm just still going to wrestle.
Yep. Oh, good answer, though. That's always an iconic one. That's one I like to watch going back on the network from time to time. Uh, my favorite match of all time, and it's funny now that I bring this up because I wasn't watching wrestling at the time, but I still love to watch the match, and it was Rock Hogan, WrestleMania 18
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
in Toronto.
Yeah.
The fan reaction just unbelievable for Hogan that night. I mean, it just gives me
Oh, yeah.
goosebumps every time I watch it.
And I
So
think that was the last time Hogan did the Hollywood Hogan, wasn't it?
yes, because Hall and Nash turned on him right after the match, and then he teamed with The Rock. I think on the following SmackDown, brought the I think he brought the red and yellow back out that night. If not, it was the following week after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just from I'm a guy who goes for the big pops of the crowd, and that was one of
Yeah.
them. Favorite wrestler of all time?
I got two of all time. I would say Ric Flair, the connection with my pawpaw, and then
Mm-hmm.
of course The Rock. The Rock debuted as The Rock and not Rocky Maivia, and I was just sold on the character that night and never looked back.
Yep, mine is The Rock as well. I mean, I'm a huge Dwayne Johnson fan. I watch all his movies. Even The Tooth Fairy, I watched it. Didn't say I like it, but I watched it. But yeah, like I said, that's what got me back into watching wrestling back in 2011. And he's just so cool, such a cool guy. I don't know if he's able to do anything that's not cool. So love his charisma, and he's great in the ring. And I do hope he comes back for one more match in the WWE eventually. Maybe it's in Hollywood in 2 years when WrestleMania is going there. I don't know. We'll see. It's tough with his movie contracts anymore. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. So
there was talk of him coming back, and I think it's kind of gotten pushed back a little bit. But
you don't want to waste it when you can't have a full stadium.
Yeah.
So, favorite current wrestler?
Okay, Cody Rhodes. I mean, I love everything Cody's done. I love the fact that he tries to keep his dad alive every single night he's out there performing. You know, he is so proud of being a third generation wrestler. He is just, he bleeds wrestling, basically, in my opinion. And so to watch him go out there and do the things that he does, whether it's do a moonsault off the top of the cage, or get 10 lashings from MJF, it's Cody, and it works great.
Yep, and I'm not trying to match your answers, but yeah, mine is Cody Rhodes as well. I mean, there's a lot of guys in AEW I could have put there, but when it comes down to it, I get more invested in Cody matches than anybody else's. I'm a big fan of the Bucks too, but they're technically tag team wrestlers, so of course, I'm an elite fan.
Yeah.
But no, I thought Cody was underutilized by the WWE. and now he's getting
Oh yeah.
used like he should have been. And like you said, he's just such a cool guy, even away outside the ring. I like how he runs the company, as an EVP, and just a lot of respect for him and Brandy and what they do for a lot of people outside the wrestling ring. So
Yep.
this question's tough here. This is one I change my answer to this one almost every year. What is your Mount Rushmore pro wrestling? Or who is on your Mount Rushmore, I should say.
Ouch. Yeah, I've been giving this a lot of thought. I think I'm gonna have to go Flair, The Rock, Cody, and Kenny Omega.
Wow. Okay. I didn't. I was gonna guess Flair was on there, but the Rock doesn't surprise me too much. But Cody and Kenny do surprise me.
Just what they've done in Cody's short amount of time of being actually able to be Cody and not one of Vince's guys that he just doesn't want to use very much, and he's only there because of who his dad is. And then Kenny, I mean, he's had match after match that's just absolutely fantastic. And let's not forget, I think Kenny is still the only person to be at every single taping of Dynamite.
That is true. That is very true. Some good points. All right. My 4, Flair as well. I mean, he's the 16-time world champion. He was great in WWF, WCW, WWE, not so much in TNA, but that's okay. No. Hogan is on mine. I mean, he revolutionized the business. I mean, you can get into his backstage politics and everything, and not want to put guys over. But I'm just going off guys I've seen too. I'm not putting like Bruno on my list because I never watched him.
Right.
Stone Cold Steve Austin is on my list. I mean, he's a 6-time WWF world champion, and he made wrestling hotter than it's ever been. And he's probably the most popular wrestling figure of all time. Still popular today.
Yeah.
And the 4th is the one I'm always changing almost every year. But right now I'm going with The Undertaker.
I can agree with that. He's
30
had
30 years
one heck of a career.
And he just now hung up the boots, and he has a interesting podcast out there right now.
He was done wrestling waited till he was done wrestling to even have a kid, because he didn't want to be away from the kid while they were growing up. I know they kind of try to keep him and Michelle try to keep her off of social media, so she's not walking somewhere and go, "Oh, you're the Undertaker's kid," and things like that.
Yep. And I mean, like I said, 30 years in the business, the WrestleMania streak, of course, 21 in a row. I mean, just now finished up this past year, and now he's doing more interviews, more podcasts. He was on the latest episode of the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm still not done with it. It's a pretty long interview, but it's been pretty good so far. I have read where he says some controversial things, so I'm interested to hear the rest of the interview. But he's one. I've swapped HBK in there. I've had The Rock in there. Savage. I've thought about Randy Savage at times. There's a lot of names, but right now I go with Taker for right now. Even John Cena, I've thought about him. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, Randy Orton. I can make a case for Randy Orton. I don't think he gets enough credit. So
no,
a lot of good arguments.
Too long since. Yeah, it's been way too long since Orton had a good title run. Just throwing that out there.
Yep. He's the one thing in WWE. You put him. He keeps evolving, and he's building good stories all the time. So even currently.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more questions here before we get into actually breaking down some wrestling. What made you get into AEW All Elite Wrestling?
Being the Elite, honestly. My dad stumbled across it somehow, and he kept saying, "Oh, check this out, check this out, check this out." Finally sat down. I think they had just wrapped the first year of shooting BTE, and so I was kind of watching some of the old episodes. Really started getting into it. Really started enjoying the guys that were on it. That's where I learned who the Bucks were, who Kenny was. Got to see Cody do stuff. Marty, I don't know if we should mention him or not, but he was on the
You can
show
mention
and
him.
he's a great aspect for the show.
Yeah.
And they said we're going to start a wrestling company, and I was burnt out on WWE. I was going through another spell where I wasn't watching wrestling just because it was the same storylines over and over again. I'd see the card for Raw. I go, okay, here's who's going to win. Here's who's going to lose. And I was right 95% of the time. And so when these guys came together and said, we're going to start a wrestling company and this is what we're going to do, by golly, I was all for it. I had a friend of my wife's print stickers. So I had bumper sticker on my car before they even had their first pay-per-view underway.
Yeah, I can kind of relate a little bit. I got to the point where, I would have Monday Night Raw on of the WWE, but it was mostly background noise. I wasn't really paying attention. It was redundant stories, and I felt like they were, kind of making fun of my intelligence almost, or not taking my. It just felt like some of the storylines was like they expected you to think everything made sense, and it just didn't, and it was hokey. And so I got to the point where I was almost done watching pro wrestling until about All In happened. And then, I was reading, I think it was WrestlingInc.com, and read all about All In. And of course, I knew Cody Rhodes, and I kept hearing the name the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega. Didn't know much about them. So I started researching them, and I was like watching some stuff on YouTube. I'm like, man, these guys are good. And then, of course, they started watching BTE in very early or late 2018, right before the announcement of the AEW, and then they announced the AEW, and I was like, all right, I'm hooked. I'm going to follow these guys. This company sounds cool. I knew of Tony Khan and his dad, Shad Khan, of owning the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm a big sports fan, so I was familiar with their name. I was like, okay, they got some good money backing here, and off they went. And then, I followed the BTEs and the Road 2s all the way up to Double or Nothing. Bought the pay-per-view, which was the first pay-per-view I've probably ever bought, because I don't count the network pay-per-views. I subscribed to the network back in 2014, and then you just get the pay-per-views. So it was the first pay-per-view I actually had bought for $49.99. And just they hooked me that night. I thought it was the best pay-per-view I'd ever seen in my life up to that point.
Yeah, and the storytelling has been great from day one, in my opinion.
Yep. They're just like every other company. They got some bumps here and there and some things I don't really enjoy, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But for the most part, I love it. And it's long-term creative storytelling and a lot of little details. If you miss that, they definitely intertwine in there. So, all right, let's get right into this last week's action. We'll start off with being the elite, since that we're kind of just talking about that. Actually, I take that back. I got one segment I want to do before that. I got some on this day facts that have happened in wrestling history. I will get through these really fast, but on this day, on January 21st, 1990, Hulk Hogan won the Royal Rumble match. This is the only time a reigning WWF/WWE champion has won the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, because they kind of made it, if you're a champion, you're not allowed to be in the Rumble.
Correct. And then a few years ago, when the championship was vacant, that's when Triple H threw Reigns over the top rope. I think that was on the road to WrestleMania 32, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
On this day in 1992, Jesse the Body Ventura made his WCW debut at Clash of Champions 18.
I didn't realize. Wow.
And of course, he'd go on to be the governor of Minnesota.
Oh, of course.
And then he made a appearance in SummerSlam as a guest referee. I don't remember what year that was, if it was 98 or 99. I cannot remember off the top of my head.
I can't either.
On this day in 1996, HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels won the Royal Rumble match for his second time.
Yep. First one to do it for the second time, too, if I remember
Correct.
correctly.
On this day in 2001, Stone Cold Steve Austin won the Royal Rumble match for the third time. He's the first one to do it 3 times, and I think he's the only one to win it 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And on this,
I
go ahead.
think you might be right. I was just saying, I think you might be right on that.
Yeah, I think so, but there have been multiple guys to win it twice, so that's where I kind of get confused.
Yeah.
And on this day last year, Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page defeated SCU, the team of Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian, on the Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea Part 2 on the Dynamite episode to win the AEW Tag Team titles.
That was the same episode that MJF got super kicked into the pool, if I remember correctly.
They threw him in the pool.
Oh, yeah, threw him in, not super kicked him, threw him in, yeah.
Yep, that was a fun episode. Man, that seems like a long time ago. It seems like more than a year ago.
I know.
But I know Chris Jericho has his cruise Part 3 set up for October. Hopefully things are good enough by then that can happen and Dynamite can take place, because that was a really neat episode.
Oh, yeah, one of the best episodes. And
that's one another bummer, of course, of 2020 and the pandemic is I would have liked to seen what other unique episodes and venues that AEW is going to put on and travel to. I'm sure there was a list, but we'll never know.
That's one bad thing about starting when they did, is they had no clue this was coming, and they had so much planned, and everything just got put on stop.
Yep, just like everybody else, but they never paused. They kept getting through it, even if they had to tape 6 episodes of Dynamite in like 24 hours when they did in Georgia before the nation went on shut down. So
yeah, I could not imagine 6 episodes in 24 hours.
Yeah. But kudos to them. They did what they had to do, and if they didn't, I don't know if we'd be sitting here talking about All Elite Wrestling. So, all right, this week's BTE, it started with a clip showing the Young Bucks getting duped by Don Callis, Kenny Omega, and the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson last week, when the Young Bucks thought they were teamed with Kenny Omega. And Callis said, whoa, we like your intro. We want you to do your intro separate from Kenny. And little did they know, he called out the Good Brothers instead. And so the Young Bucks confront them with their gear on backstage. Kenny says he didn't put the team together. And he said, he's even coming to Don's defense. The Good Brothers said they didn't know they were even wrestling. They were just stopping by to see what was going on and end up getting in the ring. And they go back and forth a little bit. Nick Jackson ends up saying, well, all right, we're cool as long as it wasn't planned. They do the too sweet. And then when Gallows, Anderson, and Kenny walk away, Nick asked Matt, do you think that they were lying to us? Matt said, yes. So then we get a segment in the Dark Order layer. They're planning gifts and party stuff for Adam Hangman Page, as we'll talk here, as they're going to be teaming up and find out his answer if he wanted to join the Dark Order. Heyman shows up and goes, hey guys, what's going on? And just gets yelled at. Get out of here, Heyman. Get out of here. What are you doing? So he leaves. And then they go back to celebrating and yelling and stuff. So the Dark Order, it's amazing how far they've come since a year ago at this time. And we can thank the late, great Brody Lee for that.
Oh, absolutely. And the best thing, in my opinion, was them getting segments on BTE like they did. It helped really put them over even before Brody became a part of the group and started appearing on BTE.
Yep, absolutely. Then we see a segment between the Bunny and Brandon Cutler. Short segment, didn't do much for me, but they kind of waved to each other, and then Bunny flips him off behind his back, and I was like, okay. It all stems back to the what game did they play? And then Brandon murdered the Bunny. I don't remember. It was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on it.
But we'll move on. We'll move on for the next segment. It was a private party was shown, and they weren't happy with their manager Matt Hardy. Big money, Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy is fantastic at evolving his character. I am really enjoying Money Matt. He's such a carny heel. It's fantastic. But Matt's upset that Quan called him a money grabbing carny. And Matt says they are dumb, but he will fix it. Says they need to win their match on Dark by any means necessary. Then we get
Private Party doesn't really want to seem to be too much of a heel at this point in time. They want to stay face. They want to win clean.
Correct. And of course, Matt's going to take a good percentage of their profits from their match.
Yeah.
Then we get Chris Statlander abducting Brian Pillman Jr. to pretty much just study him, evaluate him, and it ends up with Statlander kicking him out of her spaceship. What do you think about this segment?
Any segment with Statlander's always interesting just because she is always in character. I mean, she does not break character, whether she's injured, just got done wrestling, it doesn't matter. She's one of those few wrestlers who stays in character through everything. I mean, in the age of social media, what you see on TV isn't always who that person is. But for Chris, it's like she has to be the alien at all times. So just getting, even though it was just a workroom, she wanted to make sure that, well, this is my spaceship. Why are you in here?
Mm-hmm.
I always enjoyed Statlander segments.
That's a good point. That's a good point of it. I like Brian Pillman Jr. I really hope that he does sign a full-time AEW contract. I know him and MLW that I don't know what his contract. I don't know what's going to happen when the pandemic gets better. But we'll see where this goes. Interesting segment. I'm ready just to see her return. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
I agree.
Then we had a weird exchange between Pretty Peter Avalon and Leva Bates. Of course, they both used to be the librarians. I don't really know what to say about it. It was just weird. So,
yeah, it's almost like Peter was crawling back to her. Like they broke up and Peter realized he screwed up. So he wanted to go crawling back and hope he could get back in goods with her.
I mean, I'm still not a huge Peter Avalon fan, but I like his Pretty Peter Avalon gimmick a lot better than the librarian, to be honest.
Yeah.
Then we see Luchasaurus and Brandon Cutler pretty much talking trash to each other to pump up their upcoming matchup on Dark the following night. I don't know. It was a bunch of dragon and dinosaur stuff. I don't know.
Dinosaurs are real. Dragons are not.
Yep. That's the conclusion they came to. Then another Leva Bates segment. Kip Sabian talks to Leva Bates. Leva admits she let Kip win a few weeks ago when they played some video games. Kip gets mad and challenges her to one more challenge, which she accepts. So we will see where that goes. And then, of course, we have the BT champion John Silver defending it against his tag team partner, Alex Reynolds. In a game of beer pong, they're playing with bottle caps instead of ping pong balls and White Claw instead of beer. They film a lot of these like in the very early hours of the morning before they get on their flights. So they didn't feel like going out to get ping pong balls, so they play with bottle caps, and that had to be very challenging.
Yeah. I tried to throw a bottle cap today just to see, and it did not work out very well.
And Johnny Silver defeated Alex Reynolds, so we'll see who he defends the title against next.
Longest reigning BTE champion.
That belt is really cool. That's a cool design.
Oh yeah, I'm glad Cutler went out and got that made for him.
Sammy Guevara got one made too, and pulled a rib on the Young Bucks about a month ago.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Young Bucks, they wrap up. They have the last segment of BTE. We see them leaving their locker room, their brand new EVP locker room, to catch their flight. Big Money Matt Hardy comes in to check on how they're doing. They tell Matt that the key to the door didn't work. They had to get a locksmith. Hardy said, yeah, it was in the contract. in that he was the only person that could use the key to lock and unlock the door. And he also said he wants his $1,000 a week for the rent. And they're shoot millionaires, so they can afford it. So the Bucks end up paying him. And then after Matt Hardy leaves, Matt Jackson tells Nick he's pretty sure that he signed a blank piece of paper. And Nick says, "Yeah, we're just stupid baby faces now."
Yep. I really like that statement from Nick. It's like they're building something big for the Young Bucks, and it's going to start on BTE. It's going to carry over to Dynamite, and nobody's going to be prepared when it happens.
Yep. I already have a theory of what's going to happen, but I'm not even going to say it yet because I think I'm probably so far off. Because that's another thing I love about AEW. I have trouble predicting it. In the last 5 years watching WWE, I could predict a lot of storylines that hadn't even happened yet, and out comes the matches, and it was just getting so boring.
Yep. That's, we talked about doing predictions at some point during the podcast, and it's just going to be that. It's just going to be predictions. We're not going to be sitting here going, "Oh, well, this is exactly what's going to happen." So I hope this happens.
Yeah, we can hope and kind of theorize, but it's going to be basically subject A is going to beat subject B. So
yeah.
Why don't you talk about AEW Dark a little bit? I gotta admit, I did not catch any of Dark this week.
I didn't catch much of Dark, but I read on it. The one match I did go back and watch was Luchasaurus and Brandon Cutler. I mean, it's the shortest build for a feud in AEW history. I mean, they had like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I was curious to see. And I mean, Luchasaurus beat him in under 6 minutes. And Luchasaurus was just dominant through the whole thing. I mean, Cutler had some offense, but not much. So we really got to see that dominating factor from Luchasaurus, which I really, really enjoyed.
As we should, I think.
Yeah. Luchasaurus definitely needs to be dominant. He's been that way in the tag matches. If he's in there, you might as well count it a win. But that's one thing, again, that I like about AEW. The big guys don't always win. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sammy Guevara was in action. He won. I mean, a lot of matches, and most of them were under 10 minutes. I mean,
that's my problem with Dark, and I understand why they're doing it. It's for the enhancement talent, mostly. Get some guys out there who are green to get some work, which I'm all for. But man, when you're having 16 matches and it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, if I'm gonna watch it, I'm probably just pick and choosing my spots.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking through this. There were 2 matches over 6.5 minutes. One of them was the Lucha Bros with Pac defeating the Chaos Project in the main event, which we talked. We're not exactly sure why Chaos Project's in the main event. And then the other one was Scorpio Sky. And Scorpio defeated Nick in 7 minutes and 4 seconds. We saw Nick on Dynamite last night. So, I mean, he did pretty good last night, and he held his own pretty well from what I read. The other match that we got to talk about, and that's Private Party and Matt Hardy, who defeated Lee Johnson and Aaron Solo. And I probably just mispronounced his last name, but
no, it's Aaron Solo. You got it right.
Okay. Again, he's one of those enhancement guys, and I didn't know who he was, but
I think he dates Bailey in the WWE for one. He's her boyfriend, and 2, I think he's going to be the next member of the Nightmare family. I think
he'd be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So there was a tweet from Matt Hardy Tuesday night that you were telling me about that I agree with. It definitely happened, but it doesn't need to happen. And you got to see that match between Private Party on Impact.
Yeah, I'll talk about Impact real quick. I only watched 2 segments. It was the opening segment and the main event. Opening segment, it's all the Good Brothers out in the ring, kind of celebrating their win at Hard to Kill, them and Kenny Omega over Rich Swann, Moose, and Kip Sabian. It was not Kip Sabian, Chris Sabin. Excuse
Chris
me.
Sabian.
It was
I
supposed
do the same
to be,
thing. Don't worry.
It was supposed to be Sabin and Alex Shelley of the Motor City Machine Guns and Rich Swann, but Alex Shelley, I'm still not sure what's going on with him. He said it's not COVID related, but that for the safety of him and everybody else, he couldn't make the trip for Hard to Kill. So Moose got the spot. So the Good Brothers were kind of bringing that up because Sabin came out and said, he wanted a rematch. He wanted a shot at the titles. Well, they said, you don't even have a partner. Out comes Cowboy James Storm, and him and Sabin are ready to take him on. And then all of a sudden, Matt Hardy's music hits, and Matt Hardy rolls out with Private Party. In Private Party, which sets up Private Party against Sabin and Storm in the number 1 contenders match for the Impact Tag Team titles for the main events. Main event rolls around. Well, I should say before the main event, we saw a commercial, another ad that Tony Khan bought, and Tony Khan is with Jerry Lynn, and Tony takes his usual shots at Impact and shows a couple $100 bills and said, here's what I'm paying for this ad. Here's my money for next week's ad. And he goes, come on, Jerry, let's walk this way. Let's go watch the match. And it shows them walking into the Impact Zone. So they actually show up on camera. You see TK and Jerry Lynn scouting the match, and you see TK with his Star Trek captain's log that he's taking notes in. And towards the end of the match, Jerry Lynn hops the barricade, gets involved, and helps Private Party score the win and become the number 1 contenders for the tag titles. That brings the Good Brothers out. The Good Brothers keep putting the titles in Private Party's face. Private Party keeps taking the titles and shutting them down, throwing them down. And then Sabin and Storm recover from their beatdown, and it turns into 3 teams brawling as Impact goes off the air.
So, do you think it'll be a 3-way match for the titles? If so, what do you think the chances of Private Party winning are?
I don't, because they actually already announced the matchup today. It's Private Party versus the Good Brothers for the tag titles at their pay-per-view in February, which is escaping my. I want to say it's No Surrender, I believe is the name of it. I could be mistaken there without looking it up, but they announced that today. So, oh man, I don't know. I think they're doing this to keep the relationship and storyline going between Impact and AEW, because Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers had a segment on there, or Kenny Omega and Don Callis and the Good Brothers, and Callis and Kenny said they're going to take a break for a little bit from Impact. They got some things they got to do in AEW, but that they'll be back, which I think we are going to see a story between him and Rich Swann at one of their pay-per-views coming up. I forget the name. They already released it, and it has a Kenny Omega symbol in the logo of it. So that tells me he's going to be on that one. I think that one's in April sometime. But so I think this is just a way to keep that storyline and feud going between Impact and AEW. But I think the Good Brothers retain over Private Party.
Okay. So on to Dynamite.
On to Dynamite, yes. Action-packed show last night. It was live from Daly's Place, of course. Started off with Hangman Page, Colt Cabana, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order versus the Hybrid Sue and Chaos Project, Serpentico and Dr. Luther. It was Negative One's birthday, so they had a cake set up, and he comes out on 10 shoulders. And then Dr. Luther comes out and pretty much said the Chaos Project doesn't like kids. They don't like you, yada, yada, yada. Whole lot of nonsense, really. It just made me kind of roll my eyes. Then we get to the match. A lot of back and forth going on. I love how Hangman, the chemistry he has with the Dark Order, I think is really good. There's a lot of good spots here, including before the match, Hangman coming out of the tunnel and jumping off the entrance ramp doing a dive of some sorts. Heyman has a lot of good offense, really shows off his strength in this match. Towards the end of the match, Luther is outside brawling with Colt Cabana. He's looking to put Cabana through a table. And then Negative One hits Luther with a kendo stick shot right between the eyes. That kick and swing a kendo stick as good as the Sandman could back in the ECW days.
Oh, yeah.
And then Cabana then dumps Luther's face into the cake, which I got to laugh at, but at the same time, it's like, that's really corny because Luther just stood there with cake on him instead of trying to get back in the ring. I did have to laugh at John Silver grabbing a piece of the cake and shoving it in his mouth after the match. That was pretty funny. But back in the ring, the Dark Order destroyed Serpentico. Page hit a buckshot lariat. Then Reynolds gets the pin with a jackknife pin. That was a really cool spot there.
Oh yeah, some great teamwork between the three of them right there.
Then after the match, Dark Order wasn't done with the Chaos Project yet. They grabbed Serpentico. Negative One says he goes, "You think you're going to ruin my birthday?" He cracks Serpentico over the head with a kendo stick. Another great shot right to the head. I got to laugh at this. He then grabs the mic and tells the Dark Order that his birthday was actually 3 days ago, you idiots. And he grabs some papers and throws at Serpentico as they kick Serpentico into the tunnel. Definitely shades of his father, Brody Lee, there. I love that.
Yep. Brody Lee, Negative One, definitely kept it kid appropriate, though. Whereas if you watch BTE, you know exactly what Mr. Brody Lee would have actually said to the Dark Order.
Very well put. And then the big moment, we see Johnny Silver, just giving Page a bunch of compliments, calling him handsome, says he thinks he's so great, his hair looks great, all this stuff. It's kind of like a girl would tell a guy she has a crush on, all these compliments. Yep. And then he gets down on one knee, which just cracked me up, and asks Adam, will you join the Dark Order? Adam, you can see he's struggling on his face. He says, guys, I've been trying to tell you this for a while. I've really enjoyed working with you guys, being around you guys for the last few weeks, for the last few months, but I just can't. And just as some music plays, banners go up saying that he said yes. The Dark Order can't believe it. And we're seeing some shirtless cowboys coming out, a guy dressed like a horse, and Stu Grayson and Evil Odo are going and kicking the guys back into the tunnel. And I was just dying laughing. And I misspoke. This is when Heyman says that he's had fun with them over the past few weeks, but he's done the whole group thing before. It didn't end well for him. He apologizes to Silver. He heads up to the stage as the group try to change his mind, but Page heads off.
Yeah, Page wasn't having any of it. They even blocked the tunnel that he's been coming out of the entire time he's been in the company, and he wasn't having it. Grabbed the bottle from Stu and walks out the other side.
That is true. I forgot about it, grabbing the bottle, and we should note that the Dark Order came out of the face tunnel tonight. So I think they are faces, which I think the company kind of had to go that direction. And I like how just let them kind of do their BT stuff on Dynamite. I think that will really work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it ties the two shows together. And, everybody's really become fans of the Dark Order because of BTE. So being able to see that type of stuff still happen on Dynamite, I think is just, the fans are going to love it.
Absolutely. Backstage, then we see Alex Marvez. Spoiler alert, this wouldn't be the first or the last time we'd see Marvez tonight. He's with Chris Jericho and MJF. He's talking to them about tonight's main event match. MJF tells Chris Jericho he's worried tonight's match could hurt the Inner Circle. Jericho doesn't think so. He thinks it'll make the group stronger. It will decide which tag team moves forward to go after the AEW tag team titles. Jericho says he fully believes him and MJF are going to win, which MJF agrees, and that they will eventually become the champs. Then after that, we see Sting, as Tony Schiavone says, congratulate Darby Allin. Now, I will say, I love seeing the icons seen on my TV, but I don't think they need to use them every week.
No. Maybe, a video of him, but being present every single week, it's just not doing anything.
But there is an announcement that we will talk about here later during this rundown, which kind of makes sense to why they're using them every week. But
Yeah.
Steen comes out wearing a Brody Lee shirt, which I thought was fantastic especially because Steen just had a new
Yep.
shirt drop, which he could have been wearing that, but instead he wears the Brody Lee shirt because Brody Lee's shirt's already breaking records on ProWrestlingTees.com, AEWShop.com. All the proceeds are going to the Huber family. But other people who haven't bought it yet, seeing Steen wear that is going to entice them to go buy one. So awesome move on Steen's part. He comes out, and then Darby Allin has his entrance. He comes out to the ring. They join Tony Schiavone. Steen is given the mic and says there's something about Allin that reminds him of himself. He gives Allin his first public congratulations on defending his TNT championship. Steen says he didn't get involved last week to interrupt. He just wanted to make sure that Allin was given a fair shot against the Machine Brian Cage after Team Taz tried to get involved. Then you see Taz come on the big screen. And Taz is amazing on the mic. He's done great work since he joined the company. Taz says Steen and Allin acted dirty last week with Steen bringing the baseball bat and Darby tying Brian Cage's feet around, hog tying around with his belt like he's a cow, pretty much. And he said, if you want to act dirty, how about they come to the streets? Tad tells him the ball is in your court now. Steen says something to Allin. Darby takes the mic. He says, you want to take it to the streets, Taz, Team Taz? Be careful what you wish for because it might just happen. And that leads me to today's announcement. We got our first match for AEW Revolution. It's going to be representing Team Taz, Ricky Starks, and the FTW champion Brian Cage versus TNT champion Darby Allin and the Icon Steen in a street fight. Paul, you got to think this is going to be a cinematic match, right?
It's got to be. I mean, there's no way Steen could go out there and be in that type of match at his age, in his condition. And Sting's in great physical condition, but he's got health problems that prevented him from being successful like he needed to be when he was in WWE. And if he were to just be in a regular match, it's just going to hinder him in AEW. And I think Tony Khan, Schiavone, and everybody else wants to see Sting be there for a long time. So, this has got to be a cinematic match.
Well, and with the cinematic match, he can do spots, that are safely planned out. And I just think it will work a lot better. And you can get, he signed a 3-year deal or so, or whatever it was with AEW, and you can get a lot of longevity out of the cinematic matches. I just cringe thinking about seeing him in a normal match because I go back to 2015 Night of Champions when he took that buckle bomb and his condition started, and I just don't want to see that. I don't want to see something bad happen.
Yeah. And like you said, doing the cinematic match, this is a safe way to get Sting involved without having to worry about hurting him.
Exactly. So I'm all for it. It's going to be cool. Him and Darby, it's going to be a heck of a team. I like that we got our first match for Revolution already, which is on February 27th.
Yes.
Then we see the Young Bucks meet up at Kenny Omega's house, which somehow Marvez appears there, and
he just knew to be there.
Just knew to be there with a camera guy. Then we see Michael Nakazawa greet them via elevator. Yeah, there's an elevator in this condo type beach house, and they want to see Kenny. So Nakazawa said, "We'll take you to them." So where they go into the living room and see a very disturbing oil painting of Omega and Callis, shirtless, abs. I don't know. It was just weird.
It gave me nightmares.
That's a good way to put it. The Young Bucks aren't happy about what happened last week. Don Callis said he had someone in his ear, can't hear very well. They had to change some stuff on the fly. Callis says, then they asked, where's Kenny? We want to talk to Kenny. Callis said, Kenny can't make today's meeting, which annoys Matt and Nick. Matt, they say, really? At his own house? Callis says Omega had to change up his phone number because others were blowing it up. Callis was surprised the Young Bucks didn't get it. Callis says he's glad they're here. They're welcome anytime. Come over for dinner. Callis then kicks out Marvez and the camera guy, says, take him to the dungeon, Nakazawa, which I got a kick out of. But he said, leave the camera here. We can't have you record any Kenny's house. So then we're getting that kind of footage that Impact does a lot. We saw WWF doing today with the hidden camera kind of angle. Then let's see here. Callis is talking with the Young Bucks about working with Omega. Callis offers them a check to as an investment in Omega, and the Young Bucks look at the number and say they made that merch last week. Callis forgot that they are huge success with merch, calls them merch guys. Callis gives them another check while saying, great merch, by the way. I own a couple of those shirts. And then he says the Young Bucks are actually holding Omega back. They are hanger-ons, I believe he called them. Young Bucks says the company Callis works for, Impact Wrestling, they know from previous experience from once working for Impact and know their checks are no good. The Young Bucks rip up the checks. Callis calls the Bucks bloodsuckers. Matt and Nick then go to beat up Callis as the camera cuts out and you hear Callis yell no.
Yeah. It was a great segment. I mean, you see that and you think, okay, here we go again, but it was something different. And my favorite part of the whole segment was Matt saying, we used to work for that company and we know these checks are going to bounce. So, I mean, it was well done.
Exactly. And I told you last night when I was texting you during the show that Callis is the perfect old school heel because he makes me want to see him get the crap kicked out of him. But he also, going back and rewatching Dynamite today, I rewatched it just to catch a few things I might have missed. He puts some good little one-liners in there and things that just make me crack up. So he's a good manager for Kenny. I think he's a good asset for him. So
yeah. One of Kenny's weaknesses has always been the mic. So to have somebody like Callis by his side, it's going to make up for it.
Absolutely. We then have Cody Rhodes with Arn Anderson against Peter Avalon, and Cody said he was going to beat Peter in under a minute on Twitter.
Yeah.
And Avalon ran right into a crossroads right away. So I'm thinking, oh, Cody's got to win this thing. But instead of covering him, Cody kind of walks over to the ropes. Then Jade Cargill's music hits immediately after. Commentary mentions how Cody said he'd win the match in under a minute, like I just said. Cody looks at Cargill as she jaws at him. Then he turns around Avalon with a low blow kick below the belt. As the referee's distracted, Cargill laughs and heads to the back. Then we see Avalon getting a lot of offense in. He's working on Kenny's leg throughout the match. Kenny's really selling a knee injury. During the closing part, Avalon sends Kenny to the floor, then hits a suicide dive. Avalon goes out and brings him back into the ring. Avalon runs into a Cody Cutter, an actual Cody Cutter off the ground, not off a springboard, which I thought looked really nice. Cody then hit a running forearm, then a clothesline, and then a power slam. Takes off his weight belt like he usually does, launches into the crowd. Then Cody gets him into the figure four. Avalon flips it over for a moment. Cody then regains control. Avalon slaps Cody in the face. Cody gets a really angry look on his face, goes to slap Avalon, and Avalon decides to tap out.
I think I told you, I said, that ending confused me. And it did until I really thought about it. His current character is pretty Peter Avalon. So we don't want to injure the face. So there was the chance that was going to happen. So he's like, I'm going to tap before I get slapped in the face and any damage done.
Interesting. I didn't pick up on that's a good detail. I missed that. So, but it was funny going back, rewatching the match today when I was actually looking for the tap out. The camera angle wasn't as bad as I thought. It still wasn't the greatest because you don't really see his hand tap, but you can hear it when you're expecting it. You could hear it. So, match was longer than I expected, but it's involving the Cody Rhodes, Jade Cargill storyline, which then later on the show, they're previewing next week on Dynamite. Cody's going to respond to Shaquille O'Neal's comments made a few weeks ago, but that kind of confuses me because most of Shaq's comments were towards Brandy, not Cody.
I think it's going to be Cody being the husband, the soon-to-be father, sticking up for his wife. You have no right to come out and say those things about my wife, that type of situation.
Okay. Oh, is this going to lead to a Cody Rhodes Shaquille O'Neal match at Revolution?
I don't know if it'll be Revolution. I think it needs to be Revolution because they need to get this done and over with. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense apart from Shaq said, "I want to be in the ring," and Tony Khan said, "Okay, well, let's see what we can do for you." And Cody said, "I'll do it." But
yeah, and it's the crossover with the NBA on TNT, Shaq being one of their in studio guys. It's actually pretty smart because it might be able to get some of those NBA fans to check it out a little bit. But yeah, I'm with you. I just want them to get the program going and get it over with. I don't know about Shaq being in the ring. We've seen it before. I think at one time he could have been really good, but he is older now. So
yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's he's past his prime, so I don't
yes.
think it's going to be very good in the ring unless of course it's a cinematic match. Then we can possibly see something good.
I don't want to see two cinematic matches on the same card, but we might. So then we went backstage where FTR and Tully Blanchard are. They're talking about FTR being ranked the number one in the official rankings. Blanchard said they need the titles, though. That's the bragging rights. Jurassic Express bust into the room. Jungle Boy says he's sick of this and that he knows he can beat either one of them. Dax Hardwood says he'll take Jungle Boy on one-on-one next week. Luchasaurus says everyone will be ringside. And he will make sure nobody gets involved. Jungle Boy puts his hand out. Hardwood shakes it. Jurassic Express heads out of the room. Hardwood tells Wheeler, "I got this," then throws a glass towards the door.
It definitely, to me, Luchasaurus' statement there again demonstrated that dominance that he has to say, look, it doesn't matter. You guys can try all you want. I'm going to make sure you don't get involved.
This could be a good match. I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm a big fan of Jungle Boy in the ring. I like both the FTR guys. I think they're great. Looking forward to this one a lot next week. I think it'll be really good.
Yeah.
That gets us to Jon Moxley's first in-ring action since Winter is Coming. Jon Moxley versus Nick. I just studied how to say this last name. I'm just gonna Komoroto. Yeah, I believe you're right. I even studied how to say that today and couldn't remember. But yeah, what'd you refer to him as? Ogre off of Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds. Yep.
Yeah,
just
Ogre.
From the distance, the hair and his build, I saw him and I went, "Oh, hey." I mean, he showed some talent, though.
He did. We saw Komoroto shove Moxley, and then Moxley did his signature headbutt to him. Then Moxley was teeing off with some punches and stomps in the corner, had some big chops and a clothesline. Moxley had a running cross body. He's caught in midair and then sit down on the mat. Then we get a shot of QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes watching Nick from the crowd because he is a student of theirs at the Nightmare Factory. Then we see Moxley get choked with the boots, and he gets a big flying elbow, a backbreaker, and a second one, but he holds it and pushes down on Moxley. Moxley bites his opponent's face, hits a rolling forearm, big knee to the face. Moxley runs into a neck breaker, the 2 count. Komoroto charges in, rushes chest first into the corner. Moxley hits him with multiple kicks to the chest. Looks for a suplex, but couldn't get it. Moxley then hits a release German suplex. Moxley locks into sleeper, and Komoroto falls back, but Moxley shifts his weight to avoid getting fall on, and that was all she wrote as Komoroto passed out. So they beat him, but they didn't have him take the pin.
Yeah, and that's how you do it. I mean, when you get a big dominant guy like that, you don't want to have them take a pin on their first big debut match. So you got to find some way to do it. And I always like how AEW does it because a lot of the big guys don't lose to small guys via pin. It's always submission. And that's nice to see because it shows the little guys, look, I may not be able to beat you straight out, but if I'm quick enough and careful enough, I make you submit.
Exactly. I thought for a little bit we might get a Bill Goldberg over Hugh Morris, I believe it was in '97. Kind of shocked the world because he was getting some offense on it. And I was thinking, are we going to get a huge upset? But then I was like, oh yeah, it's Moxley. They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So Mox did cut a really good promo after the match. He says Wednesdays are getting crazy around here, and he can't keep track of who is on which team. He brings up Kenny Omega bringing his friends from outside places. He does the Too Sweet. He brings up the Bullet Club, which I think is the first time Bullet Club, the actual names have been mentioned on AEW. I'm not sure if he was supposed to do that or technically he can do that, but he did. Moxley says all of it is it all is to him is more violence and necks need a break. He says the taller the mountain is, the climb, the sweeter it is when he gets to the top. Says people can be brought in from Mexico or Japan, but all roads lead through him.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, you know, Kenny is a part of AAA, which is in Mexico. He came from New Japan. It's like, you know, Kenny and Moxley, they're going to face off again. They've got to. And Moxley's making sure it doesn't matter where you come from, how many guys you bring. It's still you and me, and that's how it's going to be.
Do you think that we get a rematch at Revolution?
I don't know if they'll do it at Revolution or if they'll build it a little more. But I think this would be the first official rematch for the world title. Now, Cody got his rematch against Brody Lee, but Brody asked for that one.
You're right, because Jericho never actually got a rematch for the world title.
Yeah.
We did see Eddie Kingston get 2 shots at it.
Yes.
But
never a rematch as I lost my title, I get a shot at it again.
Absolutely correct. So I don't know. I feel like they really got to start building towards Revolution. We're about a month out and we don't know, really who the world champion is going to be defending. And I can't imagine with AEW only having 4 pay-per-views a year, I can't imagine having a pay-per-view where the championship doesn't get defended. I can't imagine having like Kenny and the Good Brothers in a 6-way tag for the main event or anything.
No, I think we're getting that sooner rather than later, though.
Yep. Nope. I think you're right. But I think they're going to have him defend it. And I do think it'll be against Moxley at Revolution. I think that's what they're building towards right now.
It's got to be.
Yep. We didn't get a backstage segment. Dasha Gonzalez tells Eddie Kingston he'll face Lance Archer for the first time next week. She asks how he'll prepare for him. Kingston says he doesn't prepare. He just fights. Lance Archer shows up and tells Kingston he's ready to fight. He talks some more, but Kingston doesn't want to hear it and talks over him. Jake the Snake Roberts tells Kingston to leave his guys, Butcher and Blade, behind next week and see how he does against Archer on his own.
Yeah, we were talking about this last night. Kingston is the king of the active roster on that microphone, but I was really impressed for a guy who didn't talk on the mic at all when he came to the company. Archer's really starting to get kind of a groove going with that.
Yep. I mean, he's got one of the best ever to learn from, Jake the Snake. So, and speaking of Jake, it's great to see him out there. It's great to see him doing better. I know his lungs, he had some lung disease going on. So he's in really bad shape there for a little while the past few months. So it's great to see him back and doing well. So
yeah, and I'm definitely glad he at least as of yet hasn't ended up with COVID, because I don't want to see that happen to Jake.
Yeah, correct. Another backstage segment. A lot of backstage segments on last night's episode. Another one with Alex Marvez. I told you earlier it wouldn't be the last time we saw Marvez. He is interviewing Kenny Omega. He's asked him about what happened at the beach earlier. Omega says he wasn't there and doesn't have a comment. He goes into the locker room, sees Don Callis, face is all bruised up, which terrible makeup job there. It was like orange makeup on his face. That was just awful looking. But anyways, that's besides the point. Callis doesn't want Omega to get upset. Kenny wants to know who did that. Callis actually slips up and mentions Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, did it. Omega can't believe it. Marvez tries to get another comment. Callis goes off, kicks him and the cameraman out of the room. I cracked up going back when I watched this because his tone of voice just gets real high. What are you doing back here? Get out of here. And, oh man, like I said, he's good. He's a good heel. It's funny. Yeah. And Marvez is always getting bullied and bossed around. It cracks me up.
He's been super kicked at least once that I can think of, if not more than once, by the Young Bucks when they were upset for that few weeks. So yeah, Alex is a great guy though. I mean, he takes it all. He's one of those backstage guys that you enjoy watching because he's willing to do it all.
Oh, he's very good at what he does. He does a lot of NFL stuff on Sirius XM radio. He's a pro's pro. He's good. He's real good.
Yeah,
I like him in
yeah,
this role though better than they when they originally were going to have him as a ringside commentator. I didn't like that role
no,
for him.
no,
So
no. It wouldn't have worked out well. They picked the perfect role for him.
we then get a six-way tag between Top Flight and Matt Seidel versus Private Party and Matt Hardy, Hardy Party. You know, I was really excited about this match, and then I hate saying this about the guy, but seeing Matt Hardy on the card for this match kind of made me less excited than I would have been because all the other five guys are athletic as get out, and Matt at one time was. It's just Father Time and all his injuries have caught up to him to where
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know
and
how he fit in, but
even if you look back to at his prime as in the Hardy Boys, Jeff was always the one who did the high flying stunts. Matt didn't do as much. He might jump off a ladder, but it was always with a leg drop or an elbow drop or something. Jeff was always the one, and even Matt has said it, when everybody thinks of Team Extreme, they think of Jeff. They never think of me. And it's, well, because Matt, you didn't do a whole lot.
correct.
But yeah,
What's your take? What's your take on Top Flight?
oh, great young tag team. They're going to do fantastic. I like that they were pushed straight to Dynamite, honestly. They still do some stuff occasionally on Dark, but to see them debut right away on Dynamite showed that the Young Bucks have a lot of faith in them. And then to watch them perform, I mean, they're going to be champions sooner rather than later.
Yeah, they're the sky's the ceiling for these guys. Athletic, young. I mean, they're only 19 and 21. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's insane. I do wish they would have them stop losing though. I feel like they're losing too much as of late. But
Yes, they definitely need to get a couple wins under their belts. But of course, at the same time, Cutler went how long with nothing but losses, and the fans love him.
yeah, I'm not going to put Brandon Cutler in the same comparison though the Top Flight. But I know what you're saying.
Well,
but also at the same time, Private Party, you got to remember they beat the Young Bucks on one of the very first episodes of Dynamite. So it's time they start winning
yep.
some matches too. And they're in that story with Impact. So you got to make them look strong. So I get it.
Yeah.
This match was a little all over the place. There was some sloppy moments, but there was a lot of high flying action. Quinn and Dante start things off. Lots of drop kicks land from multiple wrestlers. Slow start for Private Party, but then Private Party eventually get control and they work over Seidel. Seidel finally finds a window, hits a double Hurricanrana, and Private Party tags in Darius, who lands a strike of kicks, and then a beautiful Spanish fly. Hardy tries for the twist of fate, but gets sent out to the floor. Darius hits one of the hardest suicide dives I've ever seen in my life, knocks Hardy into the barricade. And I thought Matt was hurt again. I'm like, these young guys are going to kill Matt Hardy. Back in the ring, we see Isaiah Cassidy going for a silly string, doesn't get it. Dante goes for a pin, gets a 2 count. Darius tags in. Cassidy's able to counter 2 moves, then tags in Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy hits a side effect on Darius, then one on Dante. Seidel gets up on the top rope, leaps Hardy, puts him down. Triple cover by Hardy, but only a 2 count. Quinn and Seidel are in the ring. Seidel kicks Quinn in the head. Top Fight clears Cassidy and Hardy off the ropes. Big corner clotheslines on Mark Quinn. Dante with a rough looking Hurricanrana. Yeah, that was not a good one. Cover for a 2 count. Quinn and Dante are up on the top rope. Then we see why the ref's distracted. Isaiah Cassidy with a chair shot, Dante's midsection, and that leads to Quinn hitting a shooting star press for the 1-2-3. Post-match, we see Private Party attack Seidel in Top Flight. Matt Hardy hits a couple twists of fates on some of the guys and then celebrates with Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy. I think we finally got the Private Party heel turn.
Yeah, they definitely got that by any means necessary down. And, it was such a quick turnaround, too, like we were talking a little bit earlier tonight even. in BTE, they didn't want to do that by any means necessary, and then something just flipped, and they said it's time to do it.
Yep.
But of course, go ahead.
I like it. I think it freshens them up. I think they're great young athletes, but they were starting to get a little stale for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I absolutely agree. But I've got to say, my favorite part of that match actually wasn't a move. It was right after Matt Hardy pulled the triple pin and got the 2 count. They say, "Well, oh, that was 3 2 counts," and JR goes, "Yeah, that means it was 6."
JR was on it last night.
Yeah.
I can never tell. I mean, because he's not trying to be a character. I can't tell when he's ticked or when he's just being JR. And sometimes I'm like, get off your high horse, JR. And the other times I love it. There was a little mix of both last night. I don't know. I think he loves the product, but at the same time, I think he hates the product. So,
yeah. And I think some of his interviews have even kind of led that way. He likes doing it, but he doesn't like it anymore at the same time.
I would be surprised in a sense. I think his contract runs up at the end of 2022. It wouldn't shock me if he's not back after that.
Right. And I think that's why they've got the 3-man team going right now, just kind of training Excalibur a little bit more, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Excalibur is fantastic. So is Shivani. I love Shivani. I loved him growing up. I mean, I love JR too. But, and then Taz is amazing on commentary too whenever he's on. So is Jericho, yes. Which I think Jericho could fit in there once he's done in the ring. So,
yep.
Backstage, speaking of Jericho, Inner Circle, we get MJF and Wardlow talking with Santana, Ortiz, Sammy, and Jake Hager. MJF says if it was up to him, he wouldn't do this match tonight. MJF says Jericho's the leader, so what he says goes. Sammy then gets up in MJF's face and says if we're up to him, things would be very different. Sammy is held back. MJF cools things down and says, let's just go out there and finish things off. MJF fist bumps 3 guys. Sammy says they aren't there yet.
Yeah, there's definitely something building between MJF and Sammy. We've seen it since MJF said he wanted to be a part of the Inner Circle. We even really saw it in a sense before then. And when it happens, it's going to happen, and it's going to be fantastic.
I can't wait. Sammy's top 5, if not top 3 of my favorites in AEW. And I think I like the comparison JR makes of him to younger Eddie Guerrero. I think that's spot on. So, yeah, I can't wait to see where he goes and where the story goes. The story is so complex and intriguing from the Inner Circle. So many directions they could go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like I told you last night during the show, I think they hit almost all of them before Inner Circle's done with their run.
Yes. So then we get a matchup of Penelope Ford with Kip Sabian, Miro, and Chuck Taylor, or Charles, as they're calling him now that he is Miro's personal butler. They're going with the butler term instead of young boy, which I think just sounds better because that young boy thing was kind of weird. Penelope Ford's against Layla Hirsch, who stands at a whopping 4'11", but I would not mess with her. She is a fantastic amateur wrestler, and she could whoop you. They start off with a shot of Orange Cassidy looking on from the crowd as Charles, I'm going to call him instead of Chuck Taylor, comes out with the butler outfit on. Back and forth match. Layla Hirsch heads to the second rope towards the end. Penelope Ford trips her up, hits an axe kick, or goes for an axe kick, misses. Hirsch hits a big clothesline. Hirsch with a step-up flip out to take out Sabian and Taylor. As she gets in the ring, Penelope hits a pump kick to the face and a cover. Sabian holds down Hirsch's boot so she couldn't kick out, which is a really, and Penelope got the 3 count. It was a really screwy finish. I don't know if that went as smoothly as they had hoped.
No, I don't think, because even commentary mentioned something about Penelope being on the ropes, and I think they kind of slipped up on that finish somehow.
I did too. And after the match, we get Miro telling Charles that, he calls in Charles and he wants an update. He tells Taylor that he can take him to new heights, but he has to let go of the past. Miro tells Charles he needs to let Orange Cassidy know that Miro is his best friend now. Charles, in his tuxedo, takes the mic, and he really doesn't want to say it, but he says it with his eyes pointing down that Miro is now his best friend. Orange Cassidy looks somewhat saddened at what Taylor is dealing with. Cassidy then walks up the stairs of the um, arena.
But did Orange actually look sad? I mean, he didn't really show much more of a different face than normal, so it's kind of hard to
Never
tell
does.
if he was truly sad or what.
I'm sorry, man. I can't get in the storyline. I cannot. I like
No.
Miro. I think I just don't like the character they got him. I can't get into Kip Sabian. I think he's athletic, but he and even Penelope, they seem like better fits for WWE, and I hate saying that.
Yep. And, it was real interesting during the segment when Charles was in the ring after the match. They kind of try to tread carefully when mentioning superstars, significant others who were in other companies. But, I mean, they just straight out with it last night. Can you imagine Miro's wife using Charles as a footrest? And I'm like, where did that even come from?
At least she didn't mention her getting thrown through a table. So,
yeah,
like she was every week when she was on TV before she took time off. So,
yes.
Yeah, this is going to lead to Miro versus Orange Cassidy at Revolution, right?
It's got to. I mean, what other storyline? You can't do anything with Trent.
I guess you could do a tag between Charles and Orange somehow against Miro and Sabian, but that's boring, I think. I think we'll see something at Beach Break during the wedding in 2 weeks, but I think it's Miro versus Orange Cassidy. If Orange Cassidy wins, Charles becomes Chuck Taylor again and doesn't have to serve Miro. But if Miro wins, I don't know. It's something like he's his butler for life or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and it won't be just a normal, match. There'll be some weird stipulation like there was with Orange and Jericho's final match.
Sure. So then we go backstage and we see the Good Brothers are beating up Penta. They throw him into the garage door. Then Kenny Omega and Don Callis show up. Omega joins in on the beatdown. Omega's wearing some really fancy outfit. Then we see Carl Anderson choke Penta with a cable. Omega hits Penta with his fancy boots, then jams the point of the boot into Penta's eye. As they walk away, Callis yells, no es bueno, and laughs as the group leaves.
Yeah.
Which I texted you after that happened, and I thought we were going to get Lucha Bros and Pac versus the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega, and I was saying, take my money. But we're getting a different match, which I'll explain here in just a bit. We then get a graphic for next week's Dynamite. Got Jungle Boy with Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt versus Dax Harwood with Cash Wheeler and Tully Blanchard. Like I said, that's going to be a really good one. So is Eddie Kingston versus Lance Archer. Cody's going to be responding to Shaq's comments from a few weeks back. And we get the AEW World Tag Team Champion, the Young Bucks, and the Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers. So the new Elite versus Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order. Gonna be interesting to see if the Bucks and the Good Brothers can coexist.
Like I told you last night, right after that popped up, I said, this is it. They either need to get on the same page or the club's done. The Elite will be over.
Yep. I got a sense of the direction they're gonna go, but I'm willing to wait to see next week to see what happens. So
yeah.
And then in 2 weeks at the big Dynamite, the Beach Break, they're calling it this year. We got the wedding of Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian. We got Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker with Reba, which has been going on. That story's been going on for weeks now. Then we got the Tag Team Battle Royale, which the winner is going to face the AEW Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, at Revolution. And then we get the 6-way tag main event of Jon Moxley, Ray Phoenix, and Pac versus Kenny Omega and Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. I always want to call him Luke Gallows, but it's Doc, I guess.
Is it Doc now? I just
That's what my note says, but I can't remember if it was Gallows. I just call him Gallows usually because I don't know if it's Doc or Luke or
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So
And I gotta ask you if you remember this. Do you remember the Straight Edge Society?
yes, I wasn't watching. I don't. If I was watching, I wasn't watching very closely at the time. But yeah, with CM Punk and Serena Deeb and
Yep.
Gallows, yes, yep.
And then
I,
of course I love the fact that the original character that Gallows came in as was Festus.
yeah, that was awful. I do remember that. I was watching and that was terrible.
Yes, and that's why I love the fact that they put this big twist on it. That, oh well, your family drugged you, and that's why the way you were. Come with me, and then we got
Yeah,
to see some actual Gallows, and then he went back to New Japan, and it's just he's soared since. So I'm really excited to see this 6-man tag match. Um, I'm interested to see, is the bad blood between Mox and Pac gone? I mean, is their
yeah.
past going to interfere?
I don't know, and and Pax had the pass with Kenny, so
Yep.
yeah, Mox. Okay, so it's gonna be interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. Though. That's gonna be a banger of a match for sure.
Oh yeah.
So, then we get our main event to see who's going to be the official tag team of the Inner Circle: Chris Jericho and MJF versus Santana and Ortiz, Proud and Powerful, and Sammy Hager, Jake Hager, and Sammy Guevara. So
Who
um,
got a special shout out from Sammy Hagar at the beginning?
that was neat. Now that I know who he is, I got to admit, last week I had no idea what they were talking about. So over my head there, but now I know. Um, Yes. What do you think of Jericho and MJF's entrance? Kind of the entrance music was a combination of both of their themes.
I'm glad we still got the crowd singing Judas, because that has been the one thing with Jericho that we never saw when he was in WWE, even
You
in
know,
WCW.
when they can have full arenas, that's going to be the first thing on the episode, right?
Oh yeah, when they get that full arena again, the show's kicking off with Jericho for
He's
whatever
kicking,
reason, even
he's
if he's
kicking
just
off
going to
there.
come out to say hi.
He's kicking off. You don't let the commentators speak at all. You play the whole song. It'd be just
Yep.
unbelievable. It'd be an unbelievable moment.
Oh yeah,
So,
and I think they're going to do it as soon as they get that packed again.
this match was a no DQ match, and anybody could tag anyone in the match. Um, we start off with Jericho tagging in and to face Sammy. Sammy has some big chops to Jericho. Then he flips out of the way and lands a drop kick. He then hits a clothesline. Jericho's out on the floor. Sammy looks to fly, but does a backflip in the ring, does a little dance move. Jericho looks on from the floor, then gets back in the ring. A lot of other action happens, but then Jericho tries a uh, lion salt. It was the worst one I've ever seen him try.
Ooh.
That could have been really bad. I'm hoping he goes for it next week and really perfects it because that was ugly. Ortiz gets a blind tag in. Ortiz and Santana drop Jericho for the 2 count. Jericho then nails Ortiz with a code breaker for the 2 counts. Ortiz then with a double DDT on MJF and Jericho. Hager tags in, hits a Hager bomb on MJF. And I do love the spot where Jericho had Floyd and Hager just laid him out, and then MJF had the diamond ring. Hager laid him out. They were making Hager look really strong. Sammy tags in and nails a senton on MJF. It's a beautiful senton for the cover, but Ortiz breaks it up. Hager and Ortiz are sent to the outside. Sammy hits the GTH on Jericho and nails it on a bunch of the other guys. Sammy looks to take down MJF, but MJF ends up hitting Wardlow off the apron. MJF then rolls up Sammy and grabs the tights for the 1, 2, 3 as the show literally goes off the air 7 seconds later.
Yeah. Very rushed finish. Sammy missed at least once in his little run of things there. I mean, he hit it, but it wasn't to the full extent that he was hoping for. But again, I give AEW a lot of credit. They'll let that slide. They won't even bring it up next week. If they do, Sammy will say, "You know what? I may have not hit all of it, but I hit enough." But
Yep.
yeah, I definitely think it goes back to what we were talking with the backstage segment. There's a build up with Sammy and MJF coming, and MJF pinning Sammy last night. I didn't want to see it go that way, but it had to go that way.
Yep, I think we're either going to see MJF against Sammy at Revolution, or we're going to see MJF and Jericho win the Battle Royal in 2 weeks and face the Bucks for the tag titles at Revolution. I don't know which way they're going to go yet.
Yeah, and I was really surprised, like we were talking during the match and leading up to it. Santana and Ortiz were in the rankings. They were number 5. So to see them lose, I haven't seen the updated. I don't think they've updated yet, and won't again until next week. But does that put Jericho and MJF now at number 5, or is there a new team there? What are we going to see with that?
I bet we see Jericho and MJF up there in the top 5. So we'll see. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. There's so many good storylines going on with the Inner Circle. And
yes,
I think a lot of them are going to go their separate ways eventually, but I do think we will get a run in there sometime in 2021 where we see MJF as the new leader of the Inner Circle, kind of like when The Rock took over the Nation from Farouk.
Yep. Jericho, whether it be an injury or just decides to take time off for Fozzy, MJF will fill in for him while he's gone.
Yep. And Jericho will be babyface. I think him and Sammy, unless they really pull a swerve and Sammy's the one to drive the knife in Jericho's back.
I could see it happening. But again, I think it'll be after him and MJF face off.
Yep. I think you're right. So, well, that's going to do it, I think, for the first episode of the Kicking Out podcast. Please give us a like wherever you're listening to this podcast at and subscribe. Yeah. Look for more content from us on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us on there at Kicking Out Pod. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Twitch channel. So we're going to be streaming these hopefully live around 8 o'clock Eastern time every Thursday. That's the plan for now. Some weeks schedule could change a little bit, but we'll let you know on our social media platforms. And until next week, have a great end of your week and weekend, everybody, and stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.